Okay, so I would like to take this moment to introduce Lisa McIntyre. Lisa McIntyre is Associate Professor and Chair of the Department of Sociology at WSU. In 2016, she received the first Graduate School Academy Award for Excellence. And she's going to talk to you today about your mentor and you. Lisa, please welcome.
Okay. Now, there's going to be a test on everything that's been covered so far. So take out a piece of paper. Nobody believes me. This is my problem. Okay. There will be no test. Let's see. All right. So I'm here to talk to you about a very important topic. Now, of course, everything you will hear today is very important. But my topic is really important. Let me assure you that I know why you're here, okay? Because I know you want to end up like this, with a master's degree of some sort, or possibly, how many of you are here for this? Raise your hand. Good. Okay. Now, here's the thing. You can't do this by yourself. That's one of the real important differences between graduate school and what you've experienced thus far in your undergraduate program. You need a mentor. Now, so the topic, so they titled my talk, You and Your Mentor. Okay. Now I'm assuming that most of you don't have a mentor yet. And let me indulge my desire to appear intellectually competent. This concept of mentor comes from Homer's Odyssey. And when Odysseus went to go follow up, in his wars and things, he left behind his son, and his son Telemachus. And he left him with this wise old guy whose name was Mentor. Get it? Okay. All right. Now you see, this notion of mentor and now what we call mentee, that sounds like some strange aquatic animal, but it used to be called protege. It's a classic image in our society. So here you see the shoemaker and his protege. Here's another important, concept of how the mentor relates to the protege. This, classic stuff here. But more often it's going to look something like this. It's some wise, you hope, professor type who takes you on as a student. Now, why do you need a mentor? Well, think about what you have to learn to earn a graduate degree. You've got to acquire a great deal of knowledge, much of which is pretty esoteric, that esoteric in the sense that only a small percentage of people have this knowledge. You need to learn the methods of using that knowledge, and even some rituals about how you don't think of what we do as ritualistic, but it is. And then the norms, and of course the ethics. As a sociologist, I refer to this process of getting all of this as professional socialization. Okay. You need somebody to walk with you through this process. So, the next question is, how do you get a mentor? You might be assigned, I know in my department, we've assigned every new graduate student a mentor. It's meant to be a temporary thing, okay? Somebody to help you with initial questions and things like that. But for you getting a mentor, you'll find that you have to be proactive, okay? Probably nobody's going to walk up, well, it could happen. Occasionally somebody will say, I've read your record. I want you to be my protege, my mentee, okay? More typically, you need to do something. Where you should start is getting an understanding of your department requirements, okay? if in your department you have to have a program together by the beginning of or the end of the first semester, then you know you have to speed up this process a little bit. Also, as has been stressed, it's very helpful to know graduate school requirements. Now, and you can get all this stuff online here, and I don't think you should try to memorize all the rules, but familiarize yourself enough with them so that you know where to look when you do have a question that needs a quick answer. Especially, I would start with the graduate students' rights and responsibilities that's on the graduate school website. This will tell you, you know, like if you have a problem or you think you're being mistreated by someone in your environment, there's the first place you go to get an answer. That's not enough, though. You should read widely. What do you read? Beyond your coursework. Okay. Sometimes you might be walking down the hall and you see one of the faculty members has a stack of copies of articles. Here's my newest publication. Get it, read it. Look at other graduate students' publication. See what's going on intellectually in your department. Talk with other students. Okay, if you're in a science, you know, talk with people that are working in different labs. What do you guys do in here? You know, what's it like? Okay. Oh, talk with faculty. Now, as I said, rarely somebody might come up to you and say, I want you to be my protege. Okay. But you can still, and you think, oh my God, I have to go ask somebody to be my mentor? It doesn't have to be that blatant. You know, you could meet somebody in the hall, or you could go into their office or something and say, I heard your talk about this, or I read your article about this, you know, something really esoteric that only 10 people in the world know. And you say, I found that fascinating. What's your next step, or something like that. Now, I'll tell you a secret. I don't usually tell students this because as a faculty, it's kind of embarrassing. Faculty like to be approached by graduate students. Now you say, well, why? Because it enhances their status when students are clamoring to work with them. I mean, think about it. Faculty to do research often need help. The more students that come and talk to them, the more it looks good among the other faculty. Go to presentations. Amazing what you can find out from just going to presentations in your department. If a student is defending a thesis or a PhD project, go. See what happens in those things. You don't have to ask questions, but you can. You make yourself more visible to people in your department. So you want to broaden your exposure to your discipline. Now, I know that on your application, I'm pretty sure, for graduate school, it asks you, you know, why do you want to go to graduate school? What are you interested in researching? Is that a question you remember? Now, you think, oh my God, I said I was interested in this, and I don't even know what this is. I doubt anybody will be quizzing you on what you put on your application. You will be exposed to new materials in graduate school, to new ideas, to different ways of doing things. My guess is that you might think, well, I told him I wanted to do this, but now I want to do this. Probably nobody will care. We expect you to open up your interests and make them broader, more intellectually exciting, and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Oops. So then we come back to the question. You need a mentor. How do you find one? We don't have these booths on this campus. Okay. So again, you go find somebody that's interesting to you. You ask them questions. You can say like, even just general questions. So I'm interested in your perspective on what kind of qualities a graduate student needs to succeed in this program. Okay. Have a little conversation. Conversations can reveal about both people and become the foundation of future conversations and maybe even a mentoring relationship. Whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself or behind myself or something. Okay, once you have a mentor, what do you do with them? I think the first rule is you need to have a plan. Okay. Some question you're interested in. Don't go to them and say, here I am, what do I need to do to get my degree? That doesn't show you in a good light. Okay. So think, okay, what are some questions I'm interested in? Take a brief list to your mentor and say, what do you think about this? Because this fits right in with the most important rule, number one, and that is make it easy to mentor you. You want to demonstrate to your mentor that you're willing to put in more work on your progress than you expect them to. So you don't expect to show up at your mentor's office with a blank piece of paper and a pen and say, okay, tell me. Prepare, always prepare for your meetings with your mentor. You know, and you should have meetings with your mentor. Come in with a list of 3 things and say, here's how my next thing I think I should do in my research plan is this. What do you think? Because that'll tell your mentor where you are in your thinking. And think about it, if somebody comes to you and says, I don't know what to do next, and you're thinking, and how am I supposed to know what you should do next? You know, I could make something up, but that's no fun. Engage them in interesting conversations. Now, here's a tricky one. I say never ignore your mentor's advice. I don't mean that you need to agree with your mentor all the time, but you can't ignore the advice. So if your mentor says to you, next you need to do this, and your first thought is, I don't want to do that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Take the advice, take some time to think about it. And then come back and say, you know, I really thought a lot about your thing, and here's what I think might be a better way. There's nothing more annoying to a faculty person or a mentor than to tell a student, here's what you need to do next, and the student nods their head and goes away and completely ignores it, hoping maybe that the mentor will forget. It usually doesn't happen. As part of your plan, you need to have a timeline. Now, you will find that your first timeline might turn out to be wildly, unrealistic. But when you can't keep to an agreed upon timeline, figure out why, and because you want to hold yourself to a standard where you don't end up having to say, oh, I just wasn't motivated last month. That's not a good professional presentation. A lot of you are lucky enough to have appointments as research assistants or teaching assistants, right? Nod your heads if you got one of those. Now, those things generally require you to work for 20 hours on that. Now, you're not done at the end of 20 hours. You should treat graduate school as a full-time, all-encompassing activity. Okay. You're going to be boring to everybody who's not in graduate school. You'll have to get over that. Summer's off? Oh. Okay. There's a thing that my talk was titled by the powers that be as you and your mentor. But that's kind of misleading because a lot of times you'll have more than one mentor. Okay. You might have, well, because your initial relationship with a mentor might come to an end when you finished a string of research or something like that. Or you might need a mentor who's mostly emotional support, like, don't worry, everybody has that problem, just keep plugging, whatever. Cultivate more than one mentor if that's what you need. I wrote here, mentoring relationships can be complicated. And the reason I wrote that was because of my relationship with my primary mentor in graduate school. This is how I remember him. Everybody remembers, he's dead now, so I can put this out there. Everybody remembers the guy who was my mentor as a crazy something. Okay. But he was what I actually needed because, well, I don't want to go into details because that will reveal too much about me. But, you have to learn it. You see pictures of, if you Google mentoring and look on images, you see little diagrams of some person on the top of a mountain hauling somebody else up the mountain. It's not like that. It's an interaction. One person does have more power than the other in certain respects, but you need to manage that. Pay attention to all the kinds of things, and if you end up with like a nut job like I did, then that was a negative role model for me. I'll never do that to my students. Okay. So take your time, talk to other people, but it is kind of urgent, so rush right out and get a mentor, but don't look for that booth, okay? That's all I have to say. Thank you.